So my topic is digital transformation, and when people see the Chief Technology Officer title, they think, we're talking about the technology, but this is the easy part. Let's not talk about technology. We're talking about the culture change and the skill sets and the leadership that has to be exhibited to make it happen. Because too often people think, oh, we just buy a technology and now we're digital leaders. This is nonsense. Yes, you need the right tool, but this is the easy part. Right? So we're talking about the future, and I'll start out with a hint. The future is data. I think you figured that out by now with the other speakers. I completely agree with what was said this morning. And in Silicon Valley, we have a saying. In the 21st century, all companies either are data companies, will be data companies, or will be extinct. Only three options. So if you think you're a manufacturing company, or a power utility, or a telecommunications company, or a retailer, you are confused. You are a data company, you just don't know it yet. Or you won't be here in 5 or 10 years. These are the only choices. And so companies that are making this kind of transformation have to completely rethink who they are. And this is the hard part. Because humans, we get in our comfort zone and we like to keep doing the thing that we've been doing and it's worked for the last 5, 10 years, 20 years, and why don't we just keep doing it? So the hard part of the discussion is the transformation for traditional companies. Let me give you an example. This is a longtime Teradata customer, Dutch company, been around for over 100 years. Probably most of the people in this meadow own their products. Philips Electronics. Very traditional Dutch company, right? They make televisions and lighting products and shavers and electric toothbrushes and all this kind of consumer electronics. Right? In their traditional world, they don't even know who their customer is. They think their customer is Walmart and Metro and Lidl that they sell to, and then Walmart knows who the real customer is, the consumer. Right? And so they're thinking, you know, I can't be competitive in this world of manufacturing. Manufacturing, the margin's going, there's always going to be somebody who can manufacture cheaper than you. This is actually not a very good business model for going forward. And with all the new technologies emerging, what are you going to do? So they're going through this reinvention process, which is very, very interesting. Let me give you one example. This is a public example of a product that's already released, so I can talk about what they're doing with this. Electric toothbrush. It's a very boring product. You buy an electric toothbrush every 5 to 7 years. Right? You change the brush, I hope, every 6 to 12 months. And traditionally, Philips doesn't know who the consumer is. Walmart knows. In the new world, the electric toothbrush is part of the IoT, part of the Internet of Things. When you're brushing your teeth, we're collecting data into a private cloud on your behalf. It's your data, by the way. You should not be confused about this. I know what GDPR is. Right? It's your data. And you can now get a scorecard of your toothbrushing habits. Some of you may have small kids, and you say, Johnny, did you brush your teeth before you went to bed? You don't have to ask anymore. You bring it down on your iPad and say, Johnny, get back up there. You spend too much time in the back and not enough time in the front. What again? So it completely changes the relationship that Philips has with the consumer. Right now they have a hopefully multiple times per day relationship, right, with the consumer. And it's based on what? It's not the thing that they manufactured. It's the data that that thing collects. And the algorithms that they provide for you to create value from that data, you as a consumer. Right? Very interesting. They have a partnership with a healthcare insurance company in South Africa. And this healthcare insurance company, if you brush your teeth twice per day for at least 2 minutes each time, you get 50 e-bucks. E-bucks is kind of like, you know, frequent shopper points, and you can apply them to lower your insurance premium because they believe if people take good care of their teeth, they're going to spend less time getting root canals and very expensive dentistry. Or it's interesting because you can lower your premium, or you can buy yourself a present. Yeah? And actually, a lot of people say, no, don't lower my premium. I earned this. I'm going to buy myself a present. So you can have a catalog online, and you can look at the catalog, and you can buy yourself presents with e-bucks. It's very interesting, right? So Philips' business is not manufacturing electric toothbrushes. Yeah, okay, that's a side business. The real business is data, right? So think about each of your businesses, right, and how you're going to transform into a data business. Right? Let me give you another example. Anybody here from telecommunications industry? Yeah? Okay. So one of the things that is very important if you're going to make a change is the people that are going to have to do the change, they have to feel like there's a crisis going on. Right? So let's talk about telecommunications industry. Right? In telecommunications industry, we have trained our subscribers that the cost of telecommunications is going down. Right? Is it true? More or less? It's going down. And the demand for network bandwidth, forget about voice, it's gone. Data is exponentially demanding more network infrastructure. Infrastructure is cost. So revenue is going down per subscriber. Cost is going up. At some point, there's a crossover, and it's going to be a problem. The current business model, broken, or soon to be broken. Right? So you have to sort of give people a vision for where things are going and say, well, if we keep going on this path, we've got a crisis. And it's better not to wait until we're in the middle of the hot water, right? So you have to sort of see it coming without being the frog in the boiling water, right? So you need to be aware that it's happening to you. Because a lot of companies, you know the story about the frog in the water, right? If you throw a frog in hot water, it hops out immediately. But if you put it in cool water and you slowly turn it up, you can boil a frog and you won't know it and it won't jump out. So you've got to have someone that understands the water is getting hotter. Right? I've got a problem, right? So let's imagine telecommunications industry 5 years from now. Maybe it's 10. I don't know exactly when it will happen, right? But that crossover point's going to happen, right? And I know one company who sort of looked forward and said, look, this is going to happen, and eventually the ARPU, average revenue per user, basically goes to a trivial amount of the cost of providing all this infrastructure. Let's roll the clocks forward. Let's make telecommunications free. Voice is free, data is free. Now the traditional operators say, what are you thinking? Are you an idiot? You're destroying our business model. No, actually, the model is destroying ourselves. All I did was accelerate and move it ahead. Now, in Silicon Valley, we have a saying that the product or service is free, you are the product. Yeah? So I'm going to give you free telecommunication services. What are you giving me? Data. You were giving me data. Isn't it nice that Google gives us free search and free email and all these free services? Are they altruistic? Are they nice guys? Well, maybe, but I guarantee you that they're making a profit. Right? Because you are the product. Right? So think about how in your world, and I can name almost any industry is going through this kind of discussion, right? And so we need to figure out how we're going to evolve our enterprises to think differently. What is the model for monetizing data? How do you get the data, and how do you monetize the data? And do you have skill sets in your companies in order to create that value? Right? So in Silicon Valley, there's a term that was invented by a company called LinkedIn, right? Acquired by Microsoft not that long ago. And LinkedIn invented this term called data scientist. Right? And it's pretty wide use in Germany by now. Right? And it's important to differentiate between a data scientist and a BI analyst, business intelligence analyst. A BI analyst uses data to answer a business question. Yeah, that's what a BI analyst does. They're typically using tools to do reporting and visualization and things like this, right? A data scientist, a good one, doesn't care about the answer to a business question, which may sound a little bit strange to you, but they don't care about the answer to a business question because their goal is to find the questions. Getting the answer is the easy part. Finding the question is the hard part. So a data scientist is really more like a data R&D person, right? They're diving headfirst in the data. They're doing the exploration of that data. And the more data, the better. And this is why some of the stuff we heard this morning about quantum computing is really important, because the more data, the more computation required to make sense of that data. Right? The algorithms for doing prediction, up until a few years ago, were 95%, more than 95% were linear algorithms. I take a set of inputs, I apply, 12-year-old mathematics to it, right? Some basic algebra, some coefficients and so on, and then I predict an outcome. Linear regression, logistic regression, all the cousins of those methods, so-called machine learning, very fancy name for linear regression, right? We now have the ability to map using nonlinear algorithms, right? With multi-layered neural network technology, right? This technology, by the way, has been around for more than 50 years, but actually not technology. The theory has been around for more than 50 years. But the technology has not been, because we could only do toy problems because the compute wasn't enough, right? To handle large amounts of data and multi-layered neural networks. But with GPU technology, we have a leap forward that allows deep learning to be practical for real scale applications. And so the advances in computing, GPU is a small step compared to quantum computing, but we need something between now and 5 years from now, and Will's dream becomes true, right? And so we're going to continue to make progress, and it becomes more and more about the data and how you translate the data into predictions. And in the end, of course, predictions need to translate to actions. Now, when you look at innovation, right? A lot of innovation gets driven by technology. But technology-led innovation actually turns out not to be the right way to do it. Sounds funny from a guy coming from Silicon Valley. But if you look at, there's a recent research study done at MIT by a guy named Eric Brynjolfsson. And he looked at the relationship between innovation and governance. And we think of these things as opposites, right? Governance is rules and moving slowly and bureaucracy and saying no. Innovation is saying yes. Innovation is no rules. Innovation is getting on your horse and riding in the open plans, cowboy hat, right? But in fact, the relationship is very interesting between them. So, like a lot of these kind of studies, you come out with a 2x2 matrix, right? So you've looked at a bunch of organizations in North America, across all industries, and he looked at low and high innovation and low and high governance. If you were in the bottom left quadrant, low innovation, low governance, I call this the loser quadrant. You will not be in business very long. Now, they were much more polite. Right? They called it beginner's quadrant because you can't sell consulting to people you call a loser. But in the end, if you're in that quadrant for very long, you are a loser. Now, in the bottom right quadrant is low innovation and high governance. I call this quadrant the cash cow quadrant. Right? So this comes from Michael Porter's strategy work. Right? Cash cow, by the way, is a good business. Right? You extract cash from it. So when the phone rings in the house that I grew up in, my mother goes running down the hallway, answers, hello. My little sister says, Mom, you are so weird. Why aren't you like a normal person? When the phone rings, you pick it up out of your pocket and you answer it. Why would anyone have a phone stuck to the wall? What a stupid idea this is. Right? But my mother will always have that phone. This is like her, it's her thing. She's always had that. That phone has been on that wall for 50 years. Right? And so AT&T sends her a bill every month for $50 and she pays the bill. Right? You know how she pays the bill? She writes a check, puts it in the mail. That's the mentality. So that's a good business because the copper in the ground was amortized a long, long time ago. No problem. It's pure cash. This is great. The problem is with cash cow businesses, they don't last forever. Right? because my little sister will never have a fixed line phone in her house, right? So when my mother's generation goes to a better place, there will be no replacement market. Right? We call this involuntary churn. Right? In the upper left-hand corner is low governance, high innovation. So in the report, I'll use their term for that quadrant, they call it the fashionistas. The fashionistas love new technology. Right? And I sometimes compare IT people with 8-year-olds playing football. Not American football, real football. Right? So if you watch 8-year-olds play football, at least, or soccer in the US, when you kick the ball, they all chase the ball. You kick it again, they all chase the ball. There's really no coordination, no strategy, no teamwork, but they have a lot of fun. This is IT people. Right? There's cloud computing. Everybody's running after cloud computing. We don't know why, but everybody else is doing it. It's got to be fun. Right? And there's big data. Let's go chase big data. And there's Hadoop. Let's go chase Hadoop, open source. Right? And we IT people have a lot of fun. Our LinkedIn profiles look beautiful. But how much value are we creating? So the upper right-hand quadrant is where you want to be, according to this report. And Eric sort of documented with some very good sort of mathematical sort of quantification of value. I'll give you the numbers in just a second. But this is what's called the digerati. The digerati are sophisticated in the use of data to create business value. It's not about technology, it's about creating business value. Right? So digerati is a term that was invented by Nicholas Negroponte, who was the head of the MIT Media Lab for decades. And he wrote a book called Being Digital. This material was developed in the late 1980s, creating digital. And he predicted that the economy was going to shift from atoms, physical things, to bits data. Today, I hope this is very obvious. This was in the late 1980s. It was quite insightful at the time, the model that he sort of created for what the economy was going to look like. And so the digerati are business value driven, working with IT. So IT people by themselves will not successfully innovate. I mean, they'll innovate from a technology point of view, but they won't actually create new business models. They won't create new cultures in the organization. So you've got to get collaboration between the business people and the IT people. That working together is important. The business people by themselves will also not be successful. So this digerati quadrant, based on Eric's research, 6 to 8% higher profitability. Not revenue, profitability. That's a big difference. So when we look at the value creation, right? And someone asked the question earlier about, yeah, why are these Silicon Valley guys here? I feel like we're having Silicon Valley reunion with some of the people here, you know. And I was asked on a panel not long ago. It was in Frankfurt actually, and someone asked, you know, we've got great universities, we've got a lot of smart people, and so on. Why don't we have Silicon Valley? And my answer, because I was the only Silicon Valley guy in the panel, everybody's looking at me. My answer is because you were afraid to fail. You were afraid to fail. That's the issue. You got lots of smart people. You got great universities. There's no issue except a cultural issue of being willing to fail. Right? In Silicon Valley, if you fail, it's like a badge of honor. Right? And I've worked enough in Germany to understand that if you fail, you will be punished. I mean, some organizations more than others, and it's an unfair generalization, but the distinction in culture is quite significant. Right? And so what I want to leave you with is a thought about how you make the investments in your transformation. Right? So there's a nice study around sort of looking at analytics as a portfolio. So let's assume that I tell you I'm a financial trader, I trade on the stock market, and I've never lost a penny on the stock market. Am I a good investor? No, I'm a terrible investor. It means I took no risk. It means I invested all in low-risk stocks, and I probably didn't beat inflation. I didn't lose a penny. It sounds very good, but it's very bad because I was afraid to fail. I didn't take a risk. So you need to build a portfolio, and let's say that 30% of your portfolio for doing analytics is to make what you're already doing better. squeeze more juice. It's not really a lot of innovation, but of course continuous improvement is a good thing, right? And your probability of success is 90%. 60% of your investment should be in things that are adjacent to what you're doing, but you're creating something new, but it's adjacent, it's a pivot, right? So the risk is pretty high that you're going to succeed, let's say 70%. But the returns are much higher than just doing a small incremental investment, because I'm creating new pricing models, I'm creating new products and so on, but I'm still I'm only a little bit outside my comfort zone, right? And you will be successful, and those things become the new things that are what you do for business, and then you can continuously improve them, so there's a pipeline. And then 10% of your resources, the space shots, right? The wild idea that will 90% probability fail, but if it succeeds, it's worth a lot of money. And it's okay if it fails 90% of the time, because that 1 out of 10, it's going to pay for all those failures, because failure needs to be fast and cheap, right? So that speaks to how we embark upon projects, right? We don't do projects with big fat specifications and saying everything we're going to do 9 months from now and so on. Doesn't work, right? So very, very different approach to how you execute projects. And it's not just about getting IT and business to work together. It's about changing how you do program management, how you do risk management, how your supply chain works, everything. So with that, I'd like to thank you for being here this afternoon. Thank you.